Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hello, thank you for having me on Dreams of Consciousness. This is Nick from the British doom metal band Witchsorrow, and I'm very glad to be here talking to you.
Glad to have you, Nick. So, sorry to ask this pedantic question, but when we say doom metal, what do we mean?
Doom metal to me is stuff that has the atmosphere of doom, of this sort of bleakness and um, looking into the void, I guess. But that could take many forms. That can be, the sort of classic Sabbath. That could be something way more kind of ambitious and bombastic, like Solitude Eternus or Candlemass. That could be something really kind of Neanderthal, like St. Vitus or Wizard. That can be, it could be Sun, it could be anything. But I think all of it, it all heads into this sort of darkness with a sort of slight hopelessness sometimes, I think. But that is it's an odd one, Doom, because it's a very specific but also very broad thing at the same time. It's quite contradictory. It's not always slow. Some of it's quite fast, but I think all of it does stare into the void at some point.
Now, when you say British doom metal, do you feel like there's a Britishness to the Merceness, or maybe a Merceness to being British? Like there's something intrinsically kind of sad about like this British sound.
Maybe. In some ways, yeah. I mean, you think about bands like Sabbath. Obviously, there was something of Birmingham where they were from in them, and some of the lyrics and stuff sort of hark back to bits of folklore and a sort of very British type of kind of witchiness. And I mean, you think of Electric Wizard. I always if I think of Electric Wizard, I immediately think of Dorset in the south of England. But but then if you think of the peaceful big three of doom bands, I mean, where they were from in the north, I remember understanding where they were coming from, even as a kid, reading about them in magazines, like reading about Paradise Lost. Uh, there was always the mention that they were from Halifax in Yorkshire, and that they were sort of quite bleak and miserable. And I remember, as a kid, I understood that because my grandparents lived in Yorkshire, so I spent quite a lot of time in cars driving with my parents across sort of rainy Yorkshire moors and understanding where that sort of darkness could touch a person like that. I think there is something British about it. You think of Cathedral as well. They were a very, very British feeling band. And I think, I mean, some of this is the power of suggestion. I mean, you talk about, when you talk about the Ramones, you think immediately of New York, but I think the same thing does apply if you're talking about Cathedral or someone. You think of a certain type of Britain, I think, and there is a certain Britishness to it, and also British people love complaining about things, which I think works really well with doom metal.
So I'm not actually familiar with your area. Your city's called Hampshire?
So Hampshire is the county, which goes from like sort of just underneath London down to the south coast. Southampton and Portsmouth are the nearest like big cities. Um, it's where when you think of like Jane Austen, the author, she lived here when she was alive. So it's very you don't have to go very far to being kind of this sort of classically English, quite romantic, like hilly Hampshire with lots of little villages and thatched roofs and stuff. But where we live is a town called Farnborough, where it's like 40 minutes on the train into London, but it is its own separate place to London for definite. I feel quite it's quite a well connected place, but I feel cut off from sort of quite a lot of music scenes and stuff because we're not. It's kind of neither here nor there. It's not in London, but it's not far enough out of London to be part of something else. It's kind of a weird place, but if you go in one direction, you get to London. If you go the other direction, you get to like which find a general looking countryside.
So is that considered Central England or South England?
South. This is yeah, like it's not. It borders like the some of the south coast is on it. At its lowest end, it's maybe like 70 miles south of London. Like it's pretty in the south. Yeah, there's a sort of a joke that this is one of the kind of the softer bits of England. It's not tough like the north or the West Country or in Wales.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the origins of Witch Sorrow? What were your intentions for the band when you first started?
Well, I've been into doom and kind of stoner stuff since I was quite a young teenager, and always really wanted to have a band where I played a Gibson SG and played through like a fuzz pedal. And I was really into Black Sabbath and Cathedral and Wizard and like American bands like Fu Manchu and Monster Magnet and Caius and stuff like that. And um, when I was how old was I? 2005 it was. I had the idea for the band name, and that all I wanted to do was kind of rip off Reverend Bazaar and Cathedral and Electric Wizard. And I didn't know anyone who played the drums, but Emily, who is now my wife, at the time we were sort of dating, she insisted that she wanted to be in the band as well. She'd never been in a band before, but she wanted to play bass and she wanted to be in the bands that we sort of it wouldn't separate us, like we could do it together. It was like okay, cool. Um, and then it sort of we spent ages trying to find a drummer, and then we played our first show at the end of 2006, which was like Christmas 2006 with a band called Blood Island Raiders, who have members of various other bands in them, including Al, who now plays in a band called Under the Ashes, and another one called Flame Bearer, who is like a London. He was in that doom band Mourn in the early '90s. He's sort of quite an old head, but that was the show where it was our first ever gig, and Lee Dorian was there and said that he wanted to sign us to Rise Above Records and put something out. We weren't sure what he said, that be an EP or an album or what. But that was it. Like our intention was to just sort of play a kind of very traditional style of doom, and not deviate too much from the sort of Black Sabbath, Saint Vitus kind of style. I was just obsessed at like the time. I was really kind of completely obsessed with Reverend Bazaar. I think I'd not long heard in the retro of the Bazaar Reverend, and it was everything that I loved about Doom. And I really wanted something like that for myself. And yeah, that was sort of how it started. That was the only intention, really. There was no, with every band I'd ever been in had never really done anything. But I always thought that was something that happened to other people, that you could, play proper gigs and stuff. So we just wanted to record on a 4-track and have a bit of a laugh and maybe play some gigs if anyone would have us. But yeah, the intention was sort of always quite underground and pure doom.
Yeah, that's awesome that Lee Dorian expressed an interest and kind of took you under his wing. The first couple albums were
Yeah,
on Rise Above, right?
yeah, the first two. Yeah, I mean, I'd known Lee for a little bit through gigs and doing various other things, and I think he just liked that there was a band that was at the time, like bands playing just sort of straight up doom weren't really that common. I think he was really into Reverend Bazaar. I think he felt the same thing about them as I did, that they were, there was no really not really another band like that at the time who were doing it that pure. And I think he sort of admired that about us, that we were sort of had some of the same intent there. But yeah, Lee's cool as hell. Like I haven't seen him for a bit. The last time I saw him was the first time in ages. I went to his shop to go and pick up some old records. And it's an awesome store. It really is. If you're in London, you should definitely go to it. Take money, because it's full of collectible stuff that you will pick up and then sort of wonder if you actually needed it. But yes, you do.
So from those early recordings and that early True Doom sound, how would you say that your sound has evolved?
By accident. I mean, I think but whenever we come to write anything, we always sort of stay in the same little lane. I guess we start from there, just because it's sort of always our first thought, really. And then if it branches off, that's sort of partly because you write a couple of really doom songs, and then you'll start trying to write something else, and through just not wanting to repeat that, something new will come out. Um, like on the new album, like a song like Hades Chains is like nothing we've written before. Really, it's quite sort of fast and Celtic frosty, and that sort of partly came out because we'd already done a few really slow ones. Then Emily just sort of started writing this thing. She had a very specific idea that she wanted a song that was all downstrokes, like Killing Joke or something.
Right, yeah. Kind of that
You know,
that thrash riffing style, right?
yeah, yeah, just
Yeah.
it was a lot slower originally. We keep sort of speeding it up because we can't help it. But yeah, I think in terms of the evolution, I think there's some of it is just sort of playing around with things and you know getting an idea when you're in the studio for like putting some strange effect on things and stuff. I mean, we've always sort of rooted everything in that true doom kind of style. But yeah, like there's sometimes where you just say, I just want to play a faster song. I want to play something that like either really does have a chorus or definitely doesn't have a big chorus. Like there's all sorts of things, and some of it just comes from like going, "Oh, we've already got 3 songs written now that do that. We should try something else." But I think I think it still sort of sticks with the sort of true doom style, basically because all the sort of phrasing and the chord structure and stuff that we use are all it's all one sort of scale, I suppose,
Yeah,
nearly.
yeah.
But I mean, I've always just liked having to do the and then being able to kind of pop off in a slightly different direction. I think that's quite. I think if you have a song like Hades Chains in the set with a load of other stuff, when it hits, it really, it really gets to stand up on its own and stick out a little bit. And some of that just comes from like the Trouble influence as well. Just like half of their songs are actually quite fast.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
them and like Candlemass as well had some sort of but yeah, like that, the evolution of style. Also, just you sometimes you just come up with something weird on the guitar or on the bass or whatever, some strange thing that sounds kind of spooky that still sort of works as a bit of a slight detour of to what you'd normally do. But yeah, the first song of like any record that we've ever done has always been a really like straight up Doom one. And then once you've done that, you kind of try and do it again, and then you end up. That's how you end up just sort of piling ideas on top of each other, so you don't repeat yourself.
Do all the songs start with you and Emily jamming together?
Uh, Not always. I mean, on the thing with us is if we write at home together, we we can like hit on an idea and agree on it, and then we can't really get much further than that until we put it together because she and I both work quite differently. Um, like she will have an idea in her head of what she wants to do and really chase that, whereas I will fill my phone up with like 2 hours worth of riffs and pick through them and kind of work that way. Whereas she will go, I want a song that does this and try and figure out how to do that. Whereas I'm just panning for these ideas everywhere. Um, so like on this album, a couple of the tracks were all me. Um, when I was during COVID, when like I was sort of at home off of work for a bit, and I was trying to use my time really wisely by doing things that I didn't really have a chance to do any other time because I just have 3 days and I don't want to waste them. So I sort of decided I was going to try and start writing the entire album and get it done in 2 months, and it'd be brilliant. And I got one song done on my own, and then after that, it proved quite difficult. So there's a couple that are all me, but there's Hades Chains is one of Emily's where she came up with the riff, and then you kind of sit there and figure out the next bit, but you can't just sit there and just write like the whole thing together. It just doesn't. It never works out like that. It takes us weeks to write a song just because everything sort of takes a while to click in and to sort of be on the same page with stuff. But Emily's very happy because the 2 singles, Hades Chains and Bacchus, are both her kind of riffs. They're both her songs, so she's very pleased about that. But like the songs go through, we'll take them to the rehearsal room after that and start playing it, and then try and figure out what's next, and then you'll get what you think is the finished thing, and then you'll go, actually, I don't like the chorus, so you add something else, and those constant puzzles. There's a bit of me that wishes that we could just you know, take half an hour to write a song because they're all verse chorus verse mostly, and it should be quite easy. But I'm also really glad that they're not like that and that we spend ages doing it just you know out of a slow work rate because it means that you spend ages kind of really living in it and you can sort of pick them apart a bit. But yeah, like me and Emily do write together, but it's not like we kind of have music day or anything where we can sit for hours at a time writing together because it you run out of road before too long. I think doing that, and sometimes it's productive and sometimes it's not. But when it's productive, it's very very productive.
Yeah. Do you use a DAW or recording software to aid with your songwriting or to demo material?
Sort of, yeah, like uh, what's it called? Garage band. But like generally, it's like recorded into phone. Like if I feel like I'm on a roll, I will quickly like get the get the stuff, plug it onto the computer, and just quickly do like the riff and put a really basic drum beat behind it, just to almost like a metronome, even like not nothing
Yeah.
complicated at all, just to kind of get the feel. But generally, like it's record it into the phone or a dictaphone recorder thing and learn it that way, and then you get a rehearsal, and eventually, like we demo absolutely everything in the room. Um, Partly so that we feel like we've actually made some progress. They're never used for anything. But like every album there is like a rough demo version that we recorded on this old Tascam 4-track tape cassette multi studio thing that I got off eBay for like £50 in 2003. This time, our old drummer Dave actually has some good recording stuff, and he's got this I don't know like hard drive multi track thing that he brought in. Uh, we don't overdub anything. It's just that we've got it in the room so we can kind of hear what the songs sound like when you listen back. But yeah, every album there is several demo versions of the whole thing without vocals on them, just that we've recorded in the room, just so that we can kind of keep up and rehearse on our own with what's going on with the songs.
Do you want the song structures to be finalized before you start adding your lyrics and your vocals?
Mostly, yeah. I mean, the vocals tend to be the last thing that get added. Basically, because I always feel like if I do them, the song will then change too much, and I have to go back and do them again. And also, I'm a little bit lazy and slash uninspired until they're done, and I have to do them. Um, but like even then, like the stuff gets changed sometimes. And sometimes in the studio, you'll start doing them, and you'll realize that you've overshot with the amount of lyrics you've got, or there's the repeats in the song are kind of wrong for what you thought, and you hadn't remembered it properly when you're writing the lyrics. So there's sometimes where things take a slightly interesting turn because but just because you've got them all, the songs all down, and you're trying to record like one bit of vocal, and you'll have to kind of get creative with how to sort of solve the problem. But that makes interesting stuff sometimes. I think on this album it was what track was it? Bacchus. Actually, the end bit where it slows down. I was working in my head to the wrong amount of counts and came in one time wrong. And instead of going back and redoing it, me and Chris Fielding, the producer, thought it actually seemed like quite an interesting thing to do because it wasn't just counting in straight fours all the time. Um, but yeah, I tend to like to have the vocals done just because they're sort of the less important part. I think is not the bit that I revel in. I don't really like writing lyrics or coming up with vocal lines particularly. Like I find lyric writing really weird process. Like I don't feel I'm that great with words, and I never really have much to say until I do, and then it comes quite easy. But yeah, I know plenty of people in bands who have notebooks and stuff on their phone just full of phrases and things that they've seen. And Emily does that as well. Like she'll see something in a book or when she's out, or hear a cool phrase or a cool word, and like write it down. So she's got this little bank of phrases and stuff that all sound quite evil and and weird, which is quite handy. But I do not do that. I partly because I never think to. But it's good to have that to sort of draw on. But yeah, it's always the thing that gets sort of done last. And unless we're playing, normally right at the end of the process, unless there's a song that we want to play live before we've recorded, then I have to kind of get on with it. But that tends to start the process a little bit. But it's still, I will be, 5 minutes before I'm doing my vocals and something like with the lyric sheet, like changing things around and stuff because I'm still not quite 100% there with it. So it's good to have it taken off me when we actually record it.
So on July 3rd, the fifth
Mm,
Witchsorrow album, which is called
mm,
The Devil and All His Works, will be released by Church Road Records. We spoke a little
yes.
bit about the evolution of your sound. Going into this album, did you have any specific intention? Was there anything you wanted to build on from what you did in the past, or anything new that you wanted to try?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a long process between starting writing and getting it recorded. It was like 5 years since the first song was written because of COVID and various other things. But what I wanted to do when I started writing those first little bits was I wanted to have a really much more doom album than the last one. The last one was like it was like doom metal, and I think it worked like a really good idea on Hex and Hammer. But there wasn't a lot of like slow songs. So this time I sort of wanted to lean a bit more the other way of our sound into having like the really slow stuff. I think the first track, Omnia Futura, I was really trying to do. I was thinking about a lot about bands like Ahab and Cathedral and stuff like that when Cathedral were really slow early on, just to kind of really get that thing where you have the guitar hit, and then I've always been a real sucker for in Doom where you have just the hi hat hit between the chords.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've
Yeah.
always thought that was that always does something to me, so I really wanted something like that. But I think in general it was to have this kind of slightly more sort of spooky atmosphere. This sort of when I was writing, it was sort of bringing to my mind ossuaries and graveyards and things like that. I was trying to really sort of keep it all pinned slightly to that, no matter where the music went, to have this sort of haunted, horror-y kind of atmosphere. Um, and yeah, that was sort of the intention. I mean, there's some songs on there that are slightly off kilter from that. Like in Triumph We Rot is much more of a just sort of Judas Priesty pentagrammy kind of banger. But even then, like the lyrics are all about the love of doom. Uh, um, but yeah, like the intention was I just felt that we hadn't done like doom in a minute, and I wanted to kind of get into that. So I said this to someone the other day, like some of the bits where you can really hear the influence of like super early Cathedral with the dual harmonies and stuff, and like bending the strings just out of tune with one another and stuff on some of the harmonies and things to get that effect. Like that's kind of an overcorrection, uh, as because I felt that we hadn't been quite doomy enough recently. That I sort of leaned really hard into like totally worshipping certain things in the sound, so like really ripping off those Gaz Jennings riffs and stuff from Cathedral. But yeah, like that was it really. And then I mean, so some of it is a bit odd, but that's like what's the song? Altar it fits in the end, but it does like it felt a bit different the whole time. And what happened with that was that Emily had a riff that she'd recorded, the intro bit, and she didn't really know what to do with it. And I'm someone who like if someone else has something, I think that's the best thing I've ever heard. So she'd come up with this riff that was like amazing to me, and I had an idea for what we could do with it straight away. It ended up being quite a weird song, but it still had that kind of really spooky kind of triptych kind of vibe to it, which was kind of what I wanted, even if it was a bit different. But yeah, like just having this sort of darkness and doom and spookiness was the intention. I wanted to sort of I was aware that this was going to come out even at the beginning, it was going to come out quite a long time since last record, and that we sort of slowed down a little bit in what we were doing gig wise and stuff. So I wanted to sort of feel like it was kind of a statement of of doom, the statement of doom.
Was the gap between albums due to COVID or uh, it- uh
Partly,
sorry,
partly, yeah.
go ahead.
It was partly under COVID. Yeah, I mean, so 2018. So we had like 2 years, and then COVID hit. And then during sort of slightly before that, and then during COVID, our old drummer Dave, like his life totally changed. He had 2 kids, and so it took us ages to be able to kind of get into a rhythm of writing and stuff, and everything felt like it was taking a long time. And then we were doing some cool gigs, like we were doing Bloodstock main stage in 23 and some other stuff. And when something like that comes along, that just throws any kind of writing out the window for a bit, because we focus all our energy in rehearsing. We're not a particularly multitasking band. We're either doing writing or we're playing live. um and then yeah, we recorded it. When we find, like, Dave told us he was leaving in last April, I think, May. And he said he'd finished the record with us, so we sort of focused really hard on getting it done, and then did it in July last year, and it's coming out now. I mean, that just added 1 year onto the whole thing. Oh wait, but yeah, like there's a mixture of sort of working slow, of not being able to work sometimes, and yeah, also COVID, like taking 2 years out of actually being able to function as a band, didn't help.
Yeah.
And that should have been the time that we got the whole thing written during COVID, which was my intention. I thought I'd have it done in 2 months, but I was ambitious. I thought a bit much of myself there.
So Dave is on the album, but you have a new drummer lined up, right?
Yeah, so Dave left. His final show was last June. We were due to play a Pentagram. They weren't allowed in the UK on the day that they were supposed to play the show, so we played a sort of makeup show in a bar that night for anyone that had a ticket. It was great, but that was his last thing. And then he played on the album in July. But by that point, we'd already found our new drummer, who is Scott Doom. He plays in Under a Crumbling Moon, who are awesome kind of post metal band, who are brilliant. And he also played in Gargantua, who are a sort of doomy stoner band from Leicestershire. He's super talented. He's not even a drummer; he's a guitar player. And he happened to be playing drums live for the first time ever when he for Under a Crumbling Moon, because their drummer couldn't make a show. So he decided he was going to do it, because he'd written all the music, and he worked really hard and got really good at the drums. And I just happened to see this at the time we needed to, which is one of many weird coincidences that have happened, to kind of over the last like year or so. Like, he lives really near Emily's parents. He was born in the same hospital as me, which is like 2.5 hours away from where he lives now, which is on the wrong side of the country from where he grew up. Like, it's all completely weird coincidences, but we've got these all strange links. But yeah, he's been amazing. We've played 6 or 7 gigs with him now, and he's just been an absolute machine. He's incredible. We're both looking forward as well to eventually starting to write new music with him, because being a guitar player, it'll be good to sit down with him and like riff with someone actually, writing riffs with drummer head on as well. So that'll be really nice. But yeah, he's awesome. He's amazing.
That's
We
awesome.
are very lucky to have found him.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything about the lyrical themes or some of the
Yeah,
inspirations you had for this album?
yeah. So yeah, generally what happens when I write lyrics is I wait until I kind of have to do them. I can't put it off anymore normally. Um, and then my brain will suddenly start sort of firing out ideas for stuff. And so some of them are like, Zabacus was a song. It's about sort of enjoying yourself at excess, and having a good sin. Because I've written songs about kind of excessy things before, but it's always had a sting in the tail. It's always been, you do this and then you wake up with a hangover, or like there's some sort of, you've made a deal with the devil and it seems great, but it's all gone wrong. And this time it's not. There is no hangover afterwards. But I was kind of inspired by what's the Iron Maiden song? It's on Seventh Son. Only the Good Die Young, with Bruce Dickinson. The last line in it of the verse is like, "So till the next time, have a good sin." But he's
Right.
been
Yeah.
kind of mocking about it, and like, I thought that sounds so cool. Like it sounded like a really kind of wicked thing to say. I was like, that's brilliant. So I just wanted to write a song that's a sort of a thing about, excess is good sometimes, everything in moderation, even moderation. There's sometimes when you just need to, go and indulge yourself, whatever that may be. That could be playing, Magic the Gathering, but just, having a laugh. So I thought that was cool. Like because something that people say about us is we always feel like we're having a really good time on stage, which is not very Doom at all. Um, you always look like you're having so much fun. I'm like, well, yeah, but we have kind of embraced that a little bit now. But yeah, that's what that one's about. Hades Chains is about a sort of that kind of Faustian pact with a sting in the tail. Our nephew is from one of his video games. I can't remember what it is. He's 13. I think it was Fortnite. Um, and he said it one day. He was like, "You should do a song called Hades Chains." And Emily was like, "Fuck yeah, I'm writing that down." And then I couldn't work out what it was going to be, and then I realised it actually just sounds like a sort of being caught in this sort of Hellraiser styled like bad deal. I'm a big fan of the sort of cautionary tale type song. But yeah, someone sells his soul, all goes terribly wrong. Uh, and that's that's the thing that I often see. Like I think sometimes I wonder how people manage to get sort of done over so hard. Like, how did you not see this was a bad idea? Like, if you watch, stuff like Bad Vegan or what's that other one, the Tinder Swindler and things like that, where people get kind of caught up in what's quite clearly a giant scam. I feel very bad for them, but I'm also like kind of think like this stinks of just the devil having his fingerprints all over it. Um, so that's that one. Omnia Furniture, the first one is about that was a weird one because it all means the same thing, but I'm drawing inspiration from a lot of things that I became obsessed with Dune, Frank Herbert. Um, I read like all the proper Dune books in one big burst, um, and I couldn't get away from like this idea of things disappearing into sand, partly because of that. I was fascinated by this idea in it across the books. Like they go on for like thousands of years, um, and there's in the fourth one he's sort of turned into a giant sandworm, and he's lived for like 3,500 years. Meanwhile, there's the Duncan Idaho guy who keeps getting like regenerated infinitely, and there was all these things started coming into my head about the idea of the passage of time and how something can feel really, really, really heavy and intense to you, but it leaves absolutely no mark anywhere. Or you can, really feel like something is the most important thing in the world, and it means nothing, and there's like no kind of footprint left anywhere. And that kind of blew my mind thinking about it, that how well that could apply to pretty much anything in life, that it's all going to end, and not in like a sort of miserable Pete Steele way. It was just a sort of it on on the smallest scale or the largest scale. Like the smallest scale, there's flies that live for one day in the summer. On the larger scale, there's the entire universe. And from some perspectives, even that is like the blink of an eye. Like I remember watching, we have a fireplace in our house, and I can remember watching a log burning on it and seeing some of the patterns that were being made on the bark while it was burning, and just thinking about the possibility that the entire universe is something like that. It's this slight burst of energy that lasts for 10 seconds, but on a cosmic scale. So 10 billion years is actually the blink of an eye, which is a very old idea, but it was something that just kept on playing on my mind for a little bit while I was writing it. Um, and as I say, partly just down to my brain being melted by trying to understand what was going on in like the sixth Dune book. But that's that. Yeah, in Triumph with Rot is just basically about the love of Doom, in the style of like Doom Over the World by Reverend Bizarre.
Right. Yeah.
This
Yeah. Yeah.
thing of like just being quite proud to be Doom. Because I think that that's the thing within the kind of the Doom like community or whatever. There is this real pride in it that I think you don't really get in like not in the same way anyway. In black metal or thrash or whatever. Like there is something about Doom that there's almost this like because Doom is so uncommercial and like no band really does well. Not truly. They'll be like the odd one. You get like Electric Wizard, but that was like that's a freak thing. That's weird. It's mostly this kind of underground thing where like there is absolutely no reason to do it other than because you love it. Like if you're lucky, you'll get to do some cool festivals or go on a big tour or something. But in general, like no one is going to be the next Black Sabbath. So there's no other reason to be involved in it other than liking the music and also though like just loving that kind of tone of Doom that I was mentioning earlier, that sort of bleakness and that just the kind of the Candlemass Epicus Doomicus kind of vibe of just like sort of reveling in the bleakness, I guess, of some of it. But I just wanted to have a song about that was actually like a heavy metal banger, like Judas Priest. And it, yeah, I love it because it's again it's something a bit different.
So, as you mentioned, you recorded this with Chris Fielding. Can you tell me a little bit about working with Chris?
So I mean, we've always recorded with Chris from the very first album. We went there first of all in 2009. I think was when we recorded the first one. When he worked at his first studio, Foal, in Wales. And we went there because we'd heard about it. It was good. The Gates of Slumber and a bunch of other bands had recorded there. I think he'd recorded some Wizard tracks there or something. And that was when we first met him. And none of us had ever been into a real recording studio before. We had never worked with like an outside person recording or anything like that. And we loved how he worked. We loved that like he was really big on like amps and pedals and all that kind of stuff. He had quite a lot of stuff that you could just try out and use and fiddle with. But also just he gets it. Like he's a really lovely guy. He's very very patient. He's sort of a good vibe to have in a studio where if you're talking about something internally between the three of you, he's very good at being this sort of like outside ear for stuff. Um, and he's very good at kind of spotting when you're trying to do something and you're not quite doing it correctly, and he'll go, no, if you did it on this fret here, that I can hear the melody you're trying to do it, it doesn't work. He actually understands how music and sound works as well, which is handy. But yeah, this time we went to his new studio, which is a place called Pennyland, which is also in Wales. It's in the same Welsh Valley, I think, as Foal was, just at the other end of it. But it's really remote and beautiful, Welsh countryside. Really amazing place, and it's an old sort of converted barn thing with a studio in it. But him in there was great. There, he's very good at sort of bringing in things to finish ideas. So he'll go, "I've got a pedal that'll sound really cool while you're doing that thing." Like, and if you're recording a guitar lead, he will kind of give you the thing to like keep going with the feedback, or like keep on playing after you were going to stop. Like just keep noodling over the top of it. That's what happens at the end of Bacchus. Like that, the first time we had that sort of big long solo over the end of it was when I was recording it, and I started doing the feedback and had the wire on, and just started doing this thing over the top. And he was really like into it. You could see on his face. And Emily was sat there like really vibing with it as well. We just did it all on one take. I couldn't possibly have done it again. Um, I was just vibing in the room. But yeah, he's amazing. And I went back down separately on my own to the studio with him, a couple of months after we finished tracking everything to do the vocals and do a couple of guitar solos and few little bits and pieces that hadn't been quite finished on the first time, and that was really good because he's I don't really like recording vocals in the studio. I find it really awkward being under the spotlight like that. I find it strange. But he's very good at kind of helping you through that, and really good with feedback on that and stuff. But also, like, he's got a and when it comes to mixing and stuff, he's really good as well. He's got a mixing like console thing in his house now, so he doesn't have to rent a studio for it. So I was able to sit with him for a bit and kind of direct him a bit on the sort of general like side of a barn door uh, kind of mix that I wanted before I went home. And then he's really good at like back and forth, but also like he's just great to be around. Like, he's a really nice guy. He spends all of his time, if you let him, talking about motorcycles, which can eat a bit of time. But like he's got the same sense of humor as us. Like we basically talk in like you know Office and Simpsons quotes through the
Right,
whole
yeah.
thing. Yeah, but he's cool. And like when he was in Conan, when he was working at Skyhammer, which was at John from Conan's house, they had all the Conan gear there. So like there was a really great selection of amps and pedals and stuff. Like he knows how to do like really heavy, but he's also quite handily for us. He knows how to do like a crunchy metal guitar as well, which is good. And we've sort of looked at the possibility of maybe recording somewhere else and sort of thought about it. But the conversation's never gone very far because we just go, no, it'll be weird. It won't be as good. Stick with Chris. Like even for mixing, we were sort of toying with the idea of getting somebody different to mix it, and we looked into it and just thought, you know what, Chris will understand this better than anyone, on the outside. So he's always done it. He's always been awesome.
How would you how would you describe his approach as an engineer? Is he a stickler for performance? Is he very experimental?
He will let you know if something could have been better, or if you haven't quite got something, or if something is like out of tune. Uh, in the theater, he'll spend a long time fixing little problems. If he feels like he can't see past it, which is very good. Like he's super pro like that. He's really good because he actually understands, uh, on a kind of engineering level, like how the machines in the studio actually work and like what they're doing to sound and stuff. Um, so he really understands like how to set up an amp properly, where you position mics for certain things, because he knows exactly like what the sound is doing in the room and all this kind of stuff, and like how the microphone is going to cut off certain bits of certain frequencies and stuff just by nature of being a microphone and all this kind of thing. I think at one point he done like some kind of fix on a mixing desk in an old studio he was in. Like he's that good. But yeah, like there's sometimes when he just lets you, just wild out, and you're like, well, that's what that is. Let's keep that. Um, there are times where inspiration just strikes, and you could get something knocked out in like 10 minutes. And there's other times where, like, if he knows that you're trying to do something specific, he'll spend a long time, do it. I mean, with me, rhythm guitar easy, leads either really difficult, really, because there's sometimes when I've been bitten off more than I can chew with a lead or something, and I'll be sat there for ages trying to do it, dropping in, dropping in, dropping in. I'll say I'll just think of something else. No, I know you can do it. Just do it again. I remember once we did. Oh, this was a really bad idea. We did an acoustic like interlude thing on one of our old albums, and it took us. It's like 30 seconds long, and it took us about 2 hours to record it because I couldn't quite keep it to the click, and I was like, "Well, let's just do it with that and just do it." And he was like, "Absolutely not! I'm not having it like changing speeds if it's coming out of my studio." So, yeah, I mean I can't play the guitar properly more than a him thing. But yeah, he is brilliant. Like and yeah, like I said, like he understands fully. First of all, music, but also just how to get what you want from what the gear he's got in the studio. Um, he understands exactly how to go straight for whatever guitar tone you want or whatever like weird effect noise you want. He will understand completely how to get that. Or other times he will just let you go into his big box of pedals and you pull things out and you'll spend a couple of hours just fiddling with things, looking waiting for something to take hold. Yeah, he's awesome. And I've never recorded with anyone else, but I cannot recommend Chris highly enough.
Did he handle this all the way to the master?
Did he master? Yeah, he mastered it as well. Yeah. Previously, we had various other people do it. Gomez, who's done records with like Paradise Lost and bands like that. He did one of our records, maybe two. But this time, yeah, Chris mastered it because he's got himself a load of mastering gear now. But yeah, he did everything, mixing and all of it. The only bits that weren't recorded by Chris were the guest bits, like Sammy from Employed to Serve did a guitar solo, which he just did using his recording gear, and Serena from Svalbard did one scream on Hades Chains, which we did. A friend of ours has a rehearsal room in like a shipping container out in the forest near where I live. So we took my computer down there and a really basic like £10 podcasting microphone and just she screamed into it for 10 minutes and then I sent it all to Chris. That was that. So now I'm a studio engineer now as well.
That's awesome. In his role as mixing and mastering the album, what did you want Chris to bring to the finished sound?
um I kept on asking him to turn like the reverb on the vocals up and certain other like I wanted to have a really snarly guitar thing as well. When it was like when it needed crunch, when it was doing fast stuff, and he was already on that because on the last album, I sent a copy of it to Just from Electric Wizard, and he emailed me back and he said, "Hey man, this is cool album, like it's good, but like live, your guitar sounds like Euronymous. It's got this like chainsaw feel to it. It's really nasty." And you never have that on your records. And I think Chris was a little bit wounded when I told him that. So this time, I think he made it a bit more crunchy. But yeah, I was insistent on it sounding, where it needed to, having loads of reverb on the vocals and like all over the guitar solos and stuff, just to kind of add to the vibe. And there was some of my ideas where I had to. I don't think I expressed them very well. They were kind of complicated like it's on the interlude thing, explaining how I wanted it to kind of fade in and out, and I wanted this sample over the top of it. Um, I thought that took a minute, but yeah, I sort of had a few very clear ideas about basically because we've been working on it for so long that I was like, I know how I want to say. I kept saying things to him like, just imagine like a room full of candles and skulls, and I hope he understood. I mean, he seems to have done because it sounded like I wanted it to. I mean, with mastering, I was just like, just make it sound loud and make sure it's got some beef behind it. Emily doesn't believe that mastering is a thing. She doesn't. She says she can never hear the difference. So yeah, mixing, yeah, that's really different. I don't really know what mastering does. I said, well, it sort of calibrates it for stereos and it sort of pulls all the frequencies really far apart and it inflates everything. It's like having a lilo or something and you blow it up and it that's when you see the full thing. She's like, yeah, I don't think it does anything. I don't believe in it. I can never hear the difference.
I just had this conversation earlier today, actually, just because, the nature of the podcast, asking people about the recording process, often people will send their mixes to a different engineer to master, and then ask the mastering engineer to make it sound like the mix. And it's a strange little like riddle that I have to solve in my head. It's like, well, why do you make the mix sound like it already sounds? You know what I mean? Why do you need
Yeah,
a second person to do that? I sort of understand, after years and years of asking people and speaking to people like Greg Wilkinson and Colin Marston about the production process. I sort of understand now what the mastering does. It's kind of like in film when you have post production um, and color treatment to like
mm, yeah,
change the look of the film. Mastering is something similar to that. But it is funny. Like I was very much in the same boat as Emily. Like I don't really understand like what this other guy does. Um,
It's like putting a glaze on it, or or
yeah,
like putting
yeah,
your beautiful clay statue in the kiln and finishing it. There
right,
you
yeah, yeah.
go.
That's a good analogy. I mean, to me, the album you mentioned the reverb, and lighting candles, and it does have like this almost, you know, I don't know if it's consciously retro, but it does feel like a throwback to some of the older Doom albums, which were a little bit hazier and maybe a little bit more psychedelic. Do you think that's fair?
I'd say so. Yeah, I mean, we love all that stuff. And I think as well, one of the things where we make comparison like that is that we sort of work in kind of an old school way. Like we don't use clicks unless it's like at the start of a song where the riff plays on its own or something. You just need something there to count in, but like it doesn't carry on through the song, And like with all those sounds and things, we're big fans of all the Candlemass and older heavy metal bands and stuff like that. And one of the things with that is when some of those early things were being recorded, like people didn't really know what they were doing in the studio,
Yeah,
which is kind of a bit like us. I mean, we're very lucky that we know Chris and that we can go and record with him because he really knows what he's doing. But I've always been a big fan of the idea that a band sound like they sound, and a good engineer, a studio person, just puts microphones in front of them and does that and keeps it quite simple. Because you think about in the 60s and 70s and stuff, the Beatles and the Stones and Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and the Ramones, like all their early records were done in like one day with them just going to the studio and then someone kind of adding a fix on mixing and stuff afterwards. But there was this naivety to like how to record it. And when you listen to like certain early death metal bands and stuff, they're recording with people who have no idea what to do with this music and they don't know how to tell the engineer what to do. So there's this wonderful kind of naivety in what everybody's doing. And if on that tip, like if you listen to some of the most kind of the best recordings of like early Napalm Death and Carcass were from the BBC because they had these engineers who were real like scientists, scientifically understood what was going on. There are these kids coming in who to their ears couldn't play, but they
right.
had to record it because they were the BBC in-house recording engineers who used to recording orchestras and stuff. And you end up with with something kind of unique. And I've always liked that we can throw things. Tell Chris like I want this, and he goes okay, like and tries to figure out what I mean. But the answer is often reverb. But yeah, like those early records that you mentioned, the sort of early Doom stuff. I mean, that's all really important to us. Like if you listen to like early Saint Vitus and stuff like that, like Dave Chalmers' guitar on there just sounds incredible. But you also know that like people have spent a huge amount of money trying to copy it when he must have spent about $10 on gear.
Right.
And the same with like if you listen to Paradise Lost first album, the guitar tone on that is like immense and very copied and never quite got right. And it's because they've really screwed up. The recording was really weird. Like the guy who was producing it, Hammy from Peaceville, wanted to record it himself, and they recorded the guitars like straight into the desk and recorded them clean, and then added like the distortion and stuff afterwards. While at the same time, Gregor McIntosh is there going, "I want my guitar to sound like a cello." So I do like a lot of these things where you can just sort of fiddle with stuff, and also I don't know what I'm doing with my pedals either. Like I know some people can really dial in their stuff. They all they all sound the same to me. Like I sort of turn it on. I can turn the knob, and if you turn it too far, it makes a difference. But like generally, there's no subtlety in our sound, which kind of becomes our sound. And yeah, also again, the answer is just reverb on anything that isn't a normal riff or wah.
So the album will be coming out a couple of weeks after our
Mhm.
conversation, and you guys have some dates lined up for uh, late summer, early autumn. Do you want to say anything about those shows?
Yeah, man. So yeah, the next show we have now, like, which is sort of, I guess, would technically be the album release show. That's like 2 weeks after, I think, is we're playing with Cancer Bats in London, which would be cool. They're doing their Black Sabbath cover thing, Bat Sabbath, and we're opening on that. which is cool. We played with Cancer Bats before. We've done them for a really long time. They're really cool. So that'd be nice to do it there. And then we're playing Arctangent Festival, which we played 3 years ago, and that's really cool. That's um, a lot of very kind of strange avant-garde stuff, as well as like this year High on Fire and Chelsea Wolf and Perturbator and some bands like that are playing. But then like after you get past this, Primus headlining as well one day. But after you get past the big names on there, it's like all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff that would never normally get to play a festival. And it's quite nice sort of going to something like that because we are comparatively normal on a bill like that. But it means we get to just be a kind of straight up heavy metal doom band. So I'm looking forward to that. It's always just a lovely festival. And then we're playing Abyssal Festival, which is really cool. That's sort of local. That's in Southampton, which is like an hour's drive from us, and it's been going for a few years now. And they've the last couple of years they've had to move venue, and they found this beautiful like converted church in the city, which is like it's a way bigger venue than the one they used to have it in, which was just a bar basically. I don't even think it had a proper stage in it. But now like they they've had it, this will be the third time in the new venue, and they said it costs more to put it on there and stuff, but the whole thing just feels way more kind of pro and like really it's really stepped everything up. Like every band sounds great in there, and this is the first time they've got a foreign band playing. I think they've got Ahab from Germany headlining it, which is great. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that because we only played it once, and that was like I don't know 6 years ago or something, maybe seven. Jesus, but that's going to be really cool. But yeah, we're looking forward to getting out and doing stuff. Like we've got some of our own dates as well, and then ending the year we're playing the Bloodstock Festival has a sort of Christmas thing in Wolverhampton at KK's Steel Mill, which is owned by KK Downing of Judas Priest.
That's awesome.
But apparently, I've still not been there, but some friends have played there and said that he has the backdrop from like the Turbo tour on the wall, which I'm very excited to see. But that's going to be cool. That's like Rotting Christ, I was playing Pest Control, Party Cannon, a bunch of other stuff. It should be great. Um, but yeah, like I'm just jazzed to be getting out and playing more shows. Like the ones that we've done with Scott have been like incredible. Like Desert Fest a few weeks ago was about as good as we could have ever wanted from any show. It was like a week after Bacchus came out, and we set up and there was like no one in the room because there's 5 stages. So as soon as one band finished, everyone just go somewhere else. And then about 30 seconds before we were on, I looked over the top of the amp and it was absolutely crammed in there, which we weren't expecting, and it was just awesome. It felt really good to kind of have confirmation that things are all right, and that it was a really nice way to kind of start the album stuff off, to go and play to this big room and sell some t-shirts and uh, see loads of great people there and stuff. It was awesome.
So by the time people hear this episode, The Devil and All His Works will be out through Church Road Records. Nick, please tell
Yes,
everyone listening to this or watching it on YouTube how they can order the new album. What's the best way to get it?
but the best way to get it is either through the Church Road Records online web store on their website, churchroadrecords.com, or through our Bandcamp page. You can order it as well, which is all our links are on our Instagram, which is instagram.com/witchsorrow. And then there's like the link tree thing to various online store things. Um, but yeah, the record's up there, and there's t-shirts, and Church Road have convinced us what we really need to do is hats. We need to have baseball caps. So we've got some of them. We've got long sleeves. I think we've got tote bags. We've basically turned into a cool hardcore band. We've got all this different merch. But yeah, please go and order one and make it feel like it was the last 6 years were worthwhile.
Do you want to say anything about the vinyl that Church Road is putting out?
I mean, it's going to be great. I've not seen it yet. I got to. I mean, this is all out of time now because this is coming up. But Sammy from Church Road sent me a picture the other day. He got back from download, and there was a box there waiting for him. So it exists. But yeah, like the cover and stuff has come out awesome. Like that was sort of Emily's baby doing that. Like she didn't do it, she didn't draw it, but she found an artist to do like a print, like a sort of woodcut type thing of this devil stuff, which I was sort of a bit on the fence about it. I'm not sure why. Right up until I actually saw it, and then I fell in love with it. Got our own little devil guy. Um, but yeah, like it was, it's always cool to get your stuff when you get the vinyl in your hands for the first time, just because you can't make it at home. Like there has to be quite a big level of commitment in putting something on vinyl, and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of expense. So when you get it, it does feel like it's a sort of very a quality product, and but also it's like here is the actual version of the thing that you've been making. It's like getting the print out of something. Because like releasing stuff on YouTube and stuff and making videos and stuff is really cool, but it's not the same as when you actually get the real deal thing in your hand. And I've always felt that every time we've made a record, that's always been the most thrilling thing, like getting it on vinyl um, and seeing it like that for the first time. When you put it on for the first time, it's just a really wonderful feeling that never gets old.
In terms of the merch, you guys have a Big Cartel page as well, right? In addition to Bandcamp?
Yes, the Big Cartel is our old one.
Oh, I see.
We're going
Okay.
to start using the Bandcamp one more. Like we're still using Big Cartel for now, but we're going to sort of be slowly transferring everything over to Bank as new stuff comes up, putting that straight on Bandcamp.
Okay. Gotcha. You mentioned the Instagram page. Is that the best place to follow the band for updates and uh
Oh yeah,
tour
yeah,
announcements and stuff like that?
yeah. We have Facebook, but Facebook is kind of a dead zone. So Instagram is where it's at. That's where we see the messages, and also that's like me and Emily are logged into that, so we both will see anything people send us. Yeah, that's probably the best bit, and that's got our other contacts on it, like the booking email and all that kind of stuff. If people want to get in touch with us about a gig,
Nick, it was really nice speaking with you.
you too, sir.
Is
Thank you so much for having me this evening. This has been awesome.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything else you want the listeners to know about the album or anything else?
Just, I mean, thank you so much for the great interview, but also thank you to everyone that's been listening to the new stuff and pre-ordering and telling us they like the song and stuff. Because even though it's not the be all end all, it's really amazing when you've spent time and effort and stuff, making music and recording and stuff. If somebody says that they like it, it's a really great feeling. So yeah, thank you to everybody who's been so supportive so far.
Cheers. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.